Leadership is hard, and I've got some good news and I've got some bad news for you. The bad news is that I can't make it any easier, but the good news is that we can work on it together to get better. And you want to know the secret? Who you are comes before what you do. It's form before function. So let's get to work together. I'm Preston Poore, and this is PQ. Today on PQ, we're joined by Dr. Nathan Baxter, a transformative coach and leadership expert who's dedicated his career to helping leaders achieve clarity, purpose, and lasting impact. As the co-founder of Lead Self, Lead Others and Real Coaching Success, Nathan specializes in equipping leaders and coaches to first lead themselves, creating a foundation for authentic influence and effective team building. His experience guiding high-level executives and emerging leaders alike has provided him with invaluable insights into the art and science of leadership. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation with Dr. Nathan Baxter. Nathan, welcome to the show. Okay, good. Hey, Nathan, so could you share a bit about what led you to found Lead Self, Lead Others, and the Real Coaching Success? What led you to that business aspect?
I got started in coaching when I looked at my schedule, and I was a pastor. I've been in full-time ministry for 28 years, and I would look at my schedule, and what I was far more excited about than anything else that I had to do was meeting one-on-one with my staff. And I sort of began to dread all the other meetings. I was an executive pastor. That was my final ministry spot. And so I began to ask my wife, I said, do you think I'm having a midlife thing or what is it? She goes, no, but I think you ought to explore that. So for 2 years, I just began to wrestle with the question, why am I so excited about meeting one-on-one? So I started meeting with my staff, then I started meeting with different men in my church and just really helping them see their life through a purpose lens. And after a 2-year period, I went to the elders and said, guys, I think I can be better used in a coaching capacity. Even though I'm good at all this other, ops stuff. I did HR, I did finance. I was good at all that stuff, but I really did it as an excuse to meet one-on-one. So we resigned and we stayed in the church for another year and we launched Lead Self, Lead Others. And that was 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Mm. What energizes you about the one-on-one, the coaching experience?
Well, to be honest, I really see this where God uses me the most. So I'm good at public speaking, but I don't enjoy it. I don't find the energy there. I'm good at workshops, but I don't find the energy. And so I use the trifecta approach. Out of all the things that I do, what am I naturally good at? Not being braggadocious, but what just comes to me easily. Number two, what are the things that I do within that set that energizes me? In other words, my energy goes up, not down. And then the third piece, which really sealed the deal for me, is what am I naturally good at? What energizes me? And where do I see God use me in ways that I can't explain? And so the common thread from my conversations were, man, that was so helpful. And I'm not even sure what I said or did. But at some point you have to stop taking credit for it and realize, okay, there's somebody else at work here. I'm not that good.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
That's when it really dawned on me, I probably need to give the second half of my life to that because that's where I can make the biggest impact.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So do you recall some of those pivotal moments where you were in that? You were using your talent, skills, and abilities, as you said. You were energized by it, and then God was using in that. Tell us about some of the pivotal moments that shaped that for you.
Well, as I said earlier, I started coaching my staff. They had to meet with me because I signed all their paychecks. So I had a set of guinea pigs. But as I began to expand out into the community, mainly through business leaders in our church, and I got on site in their office, in their boardrooms, and I saw that I was just as effective. I was a little nervous about it, to be honest with you. I didn't know. I knew I was good inside the church because that's where all my training was. I didn't know how good I would be out. And a pivotal moment came when I got ready to leave a guy, and he handed me an envelope, and it had a check for $500 in it. And I said, "What is this for?" And he told me, "Well, for your time." And I said, "Well, I don't charge for this. This is really just something I do. I enjoy it. It's very, and I started apologizing and he interrupted me. And he said, let me tell you something. Guys like me pay people like you to tell us the truth. We need outside consulting, outside voices to help us as executive leaders cut through all the noise and really figure out the right decisions to make. And he said, and finally, I should have paid you more, but I'm not going to because I want you to learn your lesson.
You should ask for more, right?
No. Now, when I went home and I laid that, we put this in one of our books, this little story, I laid it on the table and I told Diane, I said, you need to open that. And she did. She goes, what is this? And then I told her the story. And that really began a spark of, would it be possible to provide for my family and do where I am most gifted and most energized? And that's where that 2-year conversation started.
That's an exciting moment, certainly. When you have somebody come and say, you added value back into what I needed or how I needed it, and then to be reimbursed for that, not only from the intrinsic rewards that come, but the monetary benefit that helps too, right? That shows that there's something special going on there. Hey, tell me something real quick, Nathan. This trust, you said that we need somebody to come and tell us the truth. How long does it take you typically with a client to establish the trust level where you can look at somebody in the eyes and say, here's what you maybe need to hear?
Well, it's a judgment call for sure. There's different personalities. I mainly work at the C-suite level. So most of these men and women are in charge. They have a lot of power. They're pretty confident. And so that's a niche personality that I work with. And so I have to gauge them if they're ready for me to tell them what they need to hear. And I lean towards a very direct personality, pretty confident, pretty independent. So I get to the issue much quicker than other coaches. What I found was the stronger I get, assuming the timing is correct and the wording needs to be where they can hear me, that's what they appreciate most. Is executives are, everybody works for them. So there tend to be yes men, if you will, if, you know that term.
Sure.
And they're always being hustled to make a decision, either from consultants or vendors or, internal wars between different divisions of the company. And so they actually trust me because I'm so direct. It's kind of what I found. That's been my experience. Now, when I'm not working with an executive, especially with women who aren't executives, I'm a lot slower. So
Why?
First of all, it's male, female. And I feel like, unfortunately, in our current state, we have to earn the right a little bit that I'm a trustworthy guy. And so we talk more about relational issues. I do a lot more of their story, just trying to understand where they're coming from. And then at the right time, I'll be more direct with them.
That's good. Thank you for that. Let's go down the path real quick. I know you're the coach's coach, if you will. And our audience are millennials and Gen Z, and these are up-and-coming emerging leaders. There's this big movement out there saying that you need to be a coach at work. I know it's situational, and so you're not a coach all the time. I think you have to get to a certain point with your team from a situational leadership perspective. But why coaching? What difference does it make, and what makes a great coach in the workplace?
Well, this is kind of a buzz philosophy in corporate America, in management, where they talk about the coaching manager, the coaching director, the coaching leader.
Right.
And we did 75 managers out in Colorado Springs. And I told the executives up front, I said, now, look, I'm going to deliver the goods, and I'm a trainer. I know exactly what to tell them, but don't expect everybody to raise their hand in excitement that they get to now get to coach their people. And we landed on 57% of the 75 actually bought into what we were pitching. And so it really gave us some good data points to ask, these are good men and women. Why aren't they excited about coaching? And our learn from that is not everybody has a bent towards developing people. And that's what we mean in coaching. We're talking about develop people. Well, developing people takes time. Relationships are very, very inefficient. we also have the insecurities of the managers. They're insecure about, developing a trusting conversation. And so, I know it's a cool idea, but not everybody signs up for it. So what I encourage executives now to say is go through your list of managers and ask them, how many of you would love some skills around developing your people? And then don't punish the ones that aren't in.
Right. So that 57%, have them come and help them develop that skill, right? To develop the people, coach them, if you will, and that'll help.
And it's the typical curve. You got the early adopters, then you have the majority, and then you have the laggards. And so the idea is over time, you slowly deal with those that didn't sign up for it. You bring them over patiently.
So suppose I'm in that 57% out of those 75 people sitting in the room that you went to the workshop to do. Coach me up. Tell me, what are the qualities, the things that a good coach does for their associate in terms of developing them? What are some steps that they maybe can take and understand and learn to be a good coach?
Well, ground zero always is you have to develop your professional curiosity skills. So that's a mouthful, actually. And actually, I didn't invent it. One of my coaches came up with that, where you're very interested in the employee or the person that you're managing. What is their life like outside of work? What is their education? What is their experience with other managers? And you develop a professional curiosity, and then also learn to share your own story. What are your hobbies? What's it like on the home front? Where'd you work at? And so we try to help them develop a relationship. So that's the starting place. And then we have found that most managers that want to become better at coaching or developing people, they need a template. And so we will actually design 5 questions to ask your employees once a month or something like that. But just giving them a blank piece of paper, unless they're really into it, they're going to struggle.
Yeah, right.
So having just a preset of questions and then a little bit of structure that we give them and some instructions on how to have a coaching conversation.
Okay. That's good. It's interesting, and I won't go through all the steps right now, but I was certified through the John Maxwell team as an executive coach, and Christian Simpson was the lead at the time, internationally known coach, and he had this thing called TAGARO, which was an acronym, and you would actually walk all the way from sitting down and having a conversation, understanding what the topic was, all the way down to their what they want to do next. And so there's a format, right? The interesting thing is, I know everybody has a different process, but I've always found, Nathan, and tell me what your thoughts are on this. I've always, in the corporate level, people, I think, confuse sometimes mentoring and coaching.
Yeah.
And the way I would express that is mentoring is pouring into somebody, and then coaching is pulling something out. What would you say to that?
I have a little bit different take. So we actually had a workshop 2 weeks ago with coaches, and we covered counseling, coaching, guiding, discipling, mentoring, because they're all cousins. Mm-hmm. And what they all have in common is it's a one-on-one intentional relationship. I'm meeting with you for a reason. Mm-hmm. Mentoring for me is where the person I'm meeting with is setting the agenda. Where is it that they're wanting to grow? And I may not have any prep involved. I'm just there to mentor out of my own story, my own life, my own experiences. Coaching, at least for us, this is what we teach our coaches, is where the coach sets the agenda. So I've met with Preston. I understand where he's stuck. I understand the skill he needs to be developed. And I do this through a discovery intake process. Mm-hmm. And then I, the coach, design the learning track for him. Mm-hmm. And so what I say is coaching is pushing people forward.
Okay.
But I could easily adopt, you're pulling out of them what's already there, right. Purpose, identity, passions, ideas, because we actually do that as well. But I actually use the word, we are pushing people towards their potential.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, that's a good.
Which is what we came up with.
A great way to look at that. In all of the coaching then, in your experience, what are the biggest hurdles coaches face when guiding leaders toward meaningful change? What are the challenges that you face?
Well, first, their own insecurities.
Mm.
So every time we gather coaches together, I already know I'm going to have to address the imposter syndrome. Who am I to hold myself up as a coach, as a leader, and develop you? And so their own insecurities, and that's why self-leadership, lead self, lead others is so important, is that we have to encourage the manager or the coach. You have to be leading yourself well first so that you can address your own insecurities. Not perfection. You don't need to be perfect, but you need to be a learning leader because people will follow you better. So that's always the starting place for me is how confident are you about coaching? It's either your own insecurity with your own identity, or number two, you have no idea what to do it. You don't have any tools.
Right.
We schedule a coaching conversation. You don't know what to talk about. And so by asking the coach what are their struggles, then you can usually, if you're the training arm of the company, then you can usually go in and provide some of those things.
It would seem to me that the person that is moving into this imposter syndrome, and from a coaching perspective, well, it's having their eyes on themselves, right? They're thinking a little bit more about themselves,
Sure.
And they're not having the eyes on the person that they're trying to help, develop, if you will. So it seems to me that, and I love Dale Carnegie wrote this in one of his books. I think it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. But he said, take a genuine interest in other people.
Yeah.
Right. If you take that genuine interest, you connect with them, it's relational. Then you probably would be less focused on yourself and more focused on them about how you can help other people.
Yeah. And that's, I get that. I understand that. I could have wrote that, but when I first started coaching, I struggled with it.
Did you?
Yes, because I was going from a pastor. So all of my training, all of my experience, my entire resume, 28 years, was in the local church.
Mm-hmm.
So to go into a boardroom of a CEO, especially with a big building and elevators and receptionists, and you get a badge, that was very intimidating for me. That was all new.
Yeah.
And I just had to come back to, I'm here for a reason. I know I can help people, and I'm just going to manage the unknowns. But I struggled with it a lot.
Yeah. It does. It takes experience, I think, over time to know sometimes you don't know where you're going. But the key in my mind has always been to ask good questions, and and also recognize that you don't have the answer to everything.
Yeah. I try and encourage all coaches, hey, in your hip pocket, always keep this card ready to use. And that is, I don't know the answer to that. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to go home and I'm going to think about it. And probably tomorrow and the next day, I'm going to call you back and I'm going to give you my thoughts.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
When I started using that, it took a lot of pressure off of me to be in the moment, and it's like, I don't have to answer this guy's question, but I will.
Yeah.
Just not right now.
So Nathan, that's so important. So say that again, because our millennials are listening, the emerging leaders. I want you to say that again. What's so important for them? Because if they're coaching, they get stuck on a point. They don't have to be the expert, right?
Well, first of all, they're not. They're not the expert. It takes a while to become an expert at anything. And so they need to relax and say, I'm not an expert, but I have been charged with becoming a coaching manager, a coaching leader. I care about people. I'm willing to go to work and learn new skills, new methodologies. And as long as that intent is there, they'll be fine. You just got to get your reps in. It takes a while. And what we have found that after every coaching session, the leader who's developing his or her coaching skills, every session gives them a new piece of information. And they exponentially keep getting better. So you can always say, hey, I'm new at this, but I'm interested.
Yeah.
If they'll just say that, it just takes them off the hook.
Oh, yeah. Everything relaxes. Yeah, they're really good. So good. So let's talk about then the coaching piece and the results. Talk a little bit to us about some of the transformations you've seen in some folks that have gone through, that you've directly engaged, whether they're the executives in the C-suite or otherwise, maybe some folks that were struggling and then boom, have moved to a higher level and reaching their potential?
Yeah, one of them was yesterday. I got a text from Dr. I'm not going to say his last name, but I worked with him 4 years ago when he was struggling with his relationships at work. He was a general practitioner, and his relational skills with the staff was terrible. Patient care, clinical skills, excellent. And so his administration came to me and said, we don't want to lose him, but we can't get people to work with him. And he's putting us in a position where we may not have a choice. Would you be willing to work with him? And so I began meeting with him. I found out, one, he is so smart and so gifted. It's almost like he didn't see the staff. He just saw the patient and the case. Then number two, he had significant stress. One of my questions was, when you roll into the hospital parking garage, where's your stress level on a scale of 1 to 10? And he said, well, it's probably 9.5. I said, so at 7 in the morning, when you're rolling in the garage, you've not seen one patient, you've not seen one nurse, you're already stress level? I said, we got to work on that. And so we began to unpack his stress management, his stress triggers. Fast forward, he became the guy that, this is what was reported to me, that when he walked into the office, or he walked into a room, people were excited that he was there because he was kind. He was interested in them as well as the patient. He goes on and gets promoted. He resigned the hospital because his reputation grew significantly, and he became the CMO of a very large insurance company.
Wow.
Did very well for their 2 years. And then I coached him through a transition from there. And he just texted me yesterday about his new job. And when I see stuff like that, I remember when you were right in that chair over there and you were a mess. And now you're, at the top of your game, great reputation here in the city of Tulsa. And I thought, God, thank you. I got to be place a little part in this guy's life. And so we were somewhere eating, and he and his wife were there, and she just came up and hugged me. So that's where the real paychecks are, is when the spouse comes up. They're a big fan because of how you help their spouse.
Sure. Makes a big difference. Just to connect with you on this level, I've gone around the country and I have a keynote talk called Jerk to Joy, and embracing the exchange life. And actually in 2005, I had an executive coach that helped me. And so you mentioned the word triggers. I had a lack of appreciation for others and lack of appreciation for thought diversity. And so when I had somebody enter into my life from a coaching relationship, the push that you mentioned, also the pull out of that I recalled, helped me tremendously in terms of a pivotal point in my career. And I didn't end up being a CEO of a company or whatnot, but it made a big difference for the people that I was working with in my sphere of influence as I moved through my career. So I've been on both seats, in both seats, to hear and be a coach in the workplace, then also to have somebody coach me. Has anybody coached you before?
Yeah, I've got Dave Jewett. Go look up your1degree.com. Dave's been working with me for 35 years. Matter of fact, he was at our workshop, and I introduced him. I said 35 years. And I said, that tells you how bad a coach he is, because he's still working on me, But Dave's been in my corner, and he was very formative in my methodology and my the way that I coach people, because there's a variety of ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I totally adopted a custom approach to my coaching model. And it's because of Dave. And so we still meet, and now we've kind of joined his ministry with our coaching practice. I'm helping him do some things. And so.
That's great. I love it. Okay, good. Hey, as we wind down, just a couple other questions for you. Tell me a little bit about how your faith informs your approach to leadership and coaching. And then how do you navigate this with the clients that might have varied backgrounds?
Yeah, one of my questions when I start with, I'll say, tell me about your life, tell me about your career, current challenges. I'll say, hey, what's your faith background? Mm-hmm. That's one of the questions. Mm-hmm. And based on what they tell me, I ask them, how much of your faith do you want me to bring into the coaching? Because we can leave it out, we can put it in. It's, you're the customer. So you just tell me.
Right.
And then I'll say, well, just to let you know where I'm coming from as a Christian, I view the world and coaching through the Christian lens, meaning that it's informed by the scriptures. So a lot of my principles that I'll be sharing with you, it's because I read somewhere in the scripture, I modernized the language or the concept and put it right into executive coaching. So I don't apologize for it. Now I did have a client that says, don't bring that Christian stuff in here. He was pretty blunt about it. And he says, as long as you do that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I just get it out up front, tell them where I'm coming from. To me, where we're at an advantage over a non-Christian executive coach is spiritual discernment. So as a coach, I use prayer a lot, saying, God, what do you want me to hear from that conversation? What do you want me to remember? Is there something you want me to say? I'm getting ready to send an email. Is something missing? But to have that tool in our tool belt, if you will, puts me at a great advantage. The other thing was, I was shocked at this, but I got a lot of compliments in the first few years that caught me off guard. They said that I was kind, I was professional, I smiled a lot, I told the truth, I was humble. Well, that's not me all the time, but because of my spiritual transformation, they were experiencing the fruit of the Spirit. This is what a Christian man looks like who's trying to let more of the Spirit of Jesus out of him into the coaching experience. So I don't know that I would be that good if I wasn't a Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just some incredible tools that we have because of our faith.
Yeah. Thank you for expressing that. That's what I would call divine input. The wisdom, the insight, the understanding, those things that help us lean in and help people around that. So really good. I want to just real quick question about purpose. I talked to a lot of people about purpose, Nathan. How do you help leaders find their purpose? If you had like an elevator speech you could give me on that, how would you help people do that?
Well, my first question is, do you think there is such a thing? Is it just we're supposed to walk around, eat, lead, die? Or is there some specific purpose that's unique to you? Is it global to mankind? So I just want to see if they even believe that there is what Dave, my mentor I just talked about, he calls it your particular purpose. So there's general purpose where we'll just talk about men. All men have this in common. We are to be a good to our neighbors, good to our wives, our children, manage our money well. And that applies to all men for all time. But then Dave has taught me the word particular purpose. And this is unique to you. And so I just ask clients in the early sessions, what do you think about purpose? Because if they don't believe in a particular purpose, then I don't want to coach them that direction because they don't even believe in it. Now, I want to lead by example that I do and maybe convert them, if you will. But if they tell me that they have a particular purpose, they don't want to open that door because now it's about, well, do you know what it is? So if they say, yes, I do believe in it, then I say, well, what is it? I'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
And, many times they'll stumble through it and they'll say, hey, let's do some work on that. Let me help you get that sharp.
Yeah. Can't exactly articulate it, right? They may believe in it, but they can't spit it out. So that's so important. So good. I love that foundational question. Just the first thing is, do you believe there is a purpose?
Yeah.
So that's really good. Great starting point. Hey, as we've had a wonderful conversation, Dave. Before we move into the hot seat questions, just to ask you some fun things for folks to get to know you a little bit better. For those tuning in today, again, the emerging leaders, millennials, Gen Z, on that, what's one actionable step that they could take to better lead themselves and others?
I'll tell you, I've got a 33-year-old to 31-year-old, and this is what I just was helping them with the other day is your critical focus list up to date? Critical focus list, what are those things or people that you have to focus on? So there could be projects or it could be a person. And then I subdivide it into in your personal life or your professional life. And so there's four quadrants.
Right.
And I'll say, I want you to share that with me. And I want to see 2 or 3 bullet items on each one. And it's all about being intentional with your life, because if especially in your 30s, you get wrapped up into title, promotion, the particular enterprise or company that you work with, that becomes your identity. And with a critical focus list, it helps me pull them back up and get perspective of, no, this is a job. You probably won't work here forever, but your purpose or your focuses, those should be last way beyond this job. So I try and help them get out of the title search, and get perspective on, you're a human being, you're here on the planet for a reason, and you happen to be working at this company right now. But there's more to you than just your next project or your to-do list, or
that's so good.
Your CFL, your critical focus list.
Your critical focus list. So for listeners today, if you think about that, it'll help you prioritize and gain a perspective and refresh that frequently, right? Is to your point.
You should do at least, you should update it at least once a quarter, and you should review it for 15 minutes every week.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
Yeah, don't want to be legalistic about it, but
sure.
It's just like in the ball game, you got all these coaches with clipboards and quarterbacks with plays. It's because they get in the hunt of the battle and they forget what we're up to. And so critical focus list is when we can pull back 15, 20 minutes and remind ourselves, I got to focus on this person and I got to focus on these projects.
That's great. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, Nathan, so much for that. Let's move into the hot seat real quick. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid-fire questions, and just looking for some short answers here.
Okay.
And they're pretty simple, just asking you to get to know you a little bit better for our listeners. But if you could travel back to witness any historical event, which one would you choose and why?
Probably being on Columbus's ship. He didn't know for a fact that we were over here or that there was land over here, but he was an explorer. And just to be on that boat ride when they anchored away and start meeting, the Native Americans in this country. And I just think that'd be fascinating. You talk about a guy that jumped with no net.
Yeah, he jumped out. No safety net behind him on that as he came over and did that. A sense of adventure, an explorer on that. So that's a great attribute, certainly. Hey, what's one piece of advice that you'd give yourself when you were just starting out in leadership? What's one piece of advice you'd give to yourself when you were just starting out in leadership?
And if I could go back and be far more interested in my team than I was my own deliverables, I wanted to deliver. I wanted to be the go-to guy.
Right.
I wish I would have spent so much more time in my team.
And why? Why?
Well, now that I work with executives, I can put them in high-performing executive, average, and then low-performing. Every time they're not in high, it's because the team's not with them. They take the salary home and they sit in the board meetings, they sit in the staff meetings, but they're really not fighting for the leader.
Right.
And it's because he or she has got his own agenda, and these happen to be, this is way too harsh, but they feel like pawns. And the reason I know that is because when I work with an executive, a lot of times one of the exercises, I interview his staff and his team.
Right. Yeah, that 360 perspective, you get the feedback on that, and you can see where that happens. Certainly when we move from self-interested and self-focused into others-interested and others-focused, that makes a huge difference in terms of the team dynamic and what you can do, certainly. Hey, what's a skill you'd still love to develop or improve? Something that's out there right now, a skill that you might have, Nathan, that you'd love to develop or improve?
I would like to be slower when I've landed on something I need to say to the client in front of me. I would like to slow down even further. I've gotten so much better, but I miss out on intel if I speak too quickly. And the more intel I can get, the more focused the arrow or the truth, it will hit the mark better. And I'm still learning that because I'm an animated guy. I get excited and learning to listen until I really feel like now's the time that I should share. So I'm still working on it.
That's good. I love it. That's a good lesson for all of us. Who's been the most unexpected influence in your life or career? Unexpected influence.
And my head immediately went to Diane, my wife of 37.
You didn't expect Diane to be an influence in your life, huh?
I didn't even know the word influence when I got married.
Yeah,
I knew the
sure.
word do and accomplish and achieve. I didn't, influence didn't come online till my early 40s, where I thought, okay, now that's a quality I need.
Yeah.
But she's speaks truth into me. She soft sides me. Hey, you need to think about the relationship, not the objective. She's my partner. She's my CFO of both of our companies. And I've become a lot more like her than she's become like me, for sure. And she's been a gift.
Yeah, that's so good. I appreciate your perspective. I always tell people my wife is the best people person I've ever met, and I've learned a lot from her because from a people skills perspective, I stank and still do many times. So all good. Hey, last question for you. If you had to describe your leadership style in 3 words, you only get 3 words, Nathan, what would they be?
Aggressive. That's why I've had to learn some temperance.
3 words. 3 words.
Aggressive, vision, for sure.
Good.
I see a lot in my mind's eye. I was going to say problem solving, but that's 2 words.
Well, you can put a hyphen in there and make it problem solving. So
Thank
you're
you.
good. So we'll
a little bit of grace there. Yeah.
Really good. Hey, Nathan, you've done a wonderful job in the conversation today. I know that as our audience is listening to understand the coaching, a little bit of the process, the outcomes that are from that, what got you started, your heart. I love your heartbeat for that. And the interest in other people. And I think that's where that all starts, right, is we lean into other people, wanting to help develop them. And I think that's such an important part that we need to take and grasp in corporate America or in a small business or in a nonprofit, et cetera, that can be used across all of those ranges. So thanks for your time today and greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today on P Cubed. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube so you don't miss any future episodes. And if this episode inspired you, share with a friend or a colleague, won't you? And for the more leadership insights, you can sign up for my weekly email, The Pulse. The registration link, along with the links to Nathan's content, can be found in the show notes. And don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for more updates and inspiration. Thanks for listening. Take care and talk soon.